Green Day might be one of the biggest pop-punk bands of all time, but the Boulevard of Broken Dreams has been paved with no small amount of tragedy. When he was just 10 years old, Green Day frontman Billie Joe Armstrong and his 5 siblings lost their father. Andrew Armstrong died in September 1982, shortly after he was diagnosed with cancer of the esophagus. Billie Joe's mother remarried 2 years after the death, and none of the children got along with their new stepfather. Shortly after his father's death, Billie Joe fell into a profoundly low period. In his memoir, Welcome to My Panic, Armstrong wrote, "When kids were looking at me, it was almost like I had a ghost over my shoulder. It was almost like my life started at zero again." At one point, he found himself so deep in the throes of grief and depression that he refused to leave his room. When asked by his mother to come out, he told her, "Wake me up when September ends." That line remained in Billie Joe Armstrong's brain for more than 20 years, when it became the basis for Green Day's 2004 ballad of the same name.
Kind of having a breakthrough like that it felt good.
Within 6 weeks of his birth in May 1972, future Green Day bassist Mike Dirnt was placed up for adoption. His biological mother, Carol Alba Rowland, was unable to care for her child, as she was addicted to heroin at the time. Raised by experienced parents established in California's foster home program, Dirnt was an excellent student, despite often missing school to stay home. Dirnt suffered frequent bouts of illness attributable to damage suffered in the womb of a mother who used drugs during pregnancy. In January 2013, Dirnt announced on Green Day's website that his birth mother had died of chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. The musician had only recently located and reconnected with Rowland. He wrote, "Over the last 10 years, I've sought her out with the help of a good friend, only to meet her 1 month before her passing. We were able to share a cup of coffee, a cigarette, and some smiles." Fresh off the release of their blockbuster LP Dookie, Green Day could send even non-album cuts and soundtrack filler to the highest reaches of the Billboard charts. In July 1995, the band's contribution to the soundtrack of the flop teen movie Angus, a song called J.A.R., topped the alternative rock chart and hit number 22 on the pop chart.
We got another winner here. 2 tickets and backstage passes for the upcoming Green Day concert.
The namesake and subject of the song, Jason Andrew Relva, was a real person. He was a close childhood friend of Green Day's Billie Joe Armstrong and Mike Dirnt, and he hung out with the band during its earliest incarnation in the late 1980s, when they went by the name Desecrated Youth. In 1992, Relva died from injuries suffered in a car crash. Dirnt later told Spin he was going 95. I think he committed suicide. After Relva's passing, Dirnt got a tattoo on his arm consisting of a snake and dagger, modeled after one worn by his late friend. The song memorializing Relva was particularly important to the band, and it led to a fundamental change in the band's operations. When Green Day's 2 managers leaked J.A.R. to radio stations as part of a scheme to promote a new record label, the band fired them. In 2 separate instances, Green Day drummer Trey Cool seriously hurt himself, losing one body part and almost losing the use of another. During his childhood, the musician, then known by his real name, Frank Wright III, was reportedly participating in a school assembly, showing off his unicycle riding skills. At one point, he landed the unicycle so hard, it pushed his scrotum up into his body. While the musician didn't fully lose reproductive function, it's rumored he lost one testicle in the incident. Then, in 2002, Trey Cool was aggressively moving around to music and managed to dislocate his knee. Doctors discovered that the joint and the rest of the leg had fully come apart, requiring surgery that also involved the removal of a bone fragment. It took the drummer 6 months to recuperate. Cool told Spin, "It's been rebuilt. I've got a piece of cadaver in there as a replacement." Green Day's core trio has stayed the same since 1990. But in the early 2000s, the band nearly ended for good. Mike Dirnt later told Rolling Stone, "Breaking up was an option. We were arguing a lot and we were miserable. We needed to shift directions." Frontman Billie Joe Armstrong sensed that his bandmates viewed him more as a boss than as a collaborator, an unworkable situation. Amidst that tension, Armstrong instituted weekly band therapy sessions. Trey Cool remembered, "Admitting that we care for each other was a big thing. This openness led to musical experimentation, more than 4 months of recording, and a 20-track album called Cigarettes and Valentines. Then somebody stole the album. The master tape simply disappeared from the band's studio in Oakland." For such a massive setback to occur in that tender time proved temporarily devastating. Armstrong abandoned his wife and 2 children to melt down alone in New York. He recalled, "I was searching for something. I'm not sure it was the most successful trip." Rather than re-record the lost album upon his return to California, Armstrong instead pitched a new project, a politically charged LP with a loose story structure. That idea would evolve into 2004's American Idiot. Billie Joe Armstrong once considered himself a binge drinker, consuming mass quantities of alcohol, particularly while under duress. He drank heavily during that month-long bender in 2003, of course. But he also binged to cope with the stresses of starring in the Broadway adaptation of American Idiot at the same time the band was recording 21st Century Breakdown. In his memoir, Armstrong wrote, "I think I was just getting into a place where it was getting scary and that if I kept going, I would end up dead."
I just felt terrible. I got tired of feeling tired, as they say.
By 2012, Armstrong's alcohol intake reached its peak in terms of quantity, frequency, and self-destructiveness. He'd also added powerful prescription medication to his regimen of substance abuse. He later told Rolling Stone, "I couldn't predict where I was going to end up at the end of the night. I'd wake up in a strange house on a couch. I wouldn't remember how. It was a complete blackout." In September 2012, after Green Day recorded 3 albums back to back to back, the band played an iHeartRadio festival-style show in Las Vegas. When a light came on to warn Green Day that their slot was about to end, Armstrong, heavily inebriated and offended, grew upset. He launched into a profanity-laden tirade, destroyed his guitar, and walked off stage. The next morning, unable to recall much of what transpired on stage the night before, Armstrong returned home to California and enrolled in a drug rehabilitation facility. Marital discord has darkened the life of Green Day bassist Mike Dirnt across the decades, in both the relationship of his parents and his own. Raised by adoptive parents Cheryl Nasser and Patrick Pritchard, the couple divorced when Dirnt was 7 years old. The split followed a lot of spousal fighting, and one episode, witnessed by Dirnt, ended with a visit from the police. Dirnt's first marriage ended after just 3 years, while still reeling from the end of his relationship. The masters from the unreleased Green Day album were stolen. American Idiot's subsequent release was overshadowed for Dirnt by more personal problems. Remarried by that point, Dirnt's second wife told him that their marriage was over. He told Rolling Stone, "My ex-wife told me she was leaving me the day we finished the album. When we mastered the record, I cried through the entire thing." Mike Dirnt married Brittany Cade, his third wife, in 2009. 5 years later, Dirnt announced on Green Day's Facebook page that Cade had just received a breast cancer diagnosis. Green Day took an extended hiatus in the mid-2010s, and Dirnt spent most of that time helping his wife through her cancer treatment, which consisted of rounds of chemotherapy and 9 surgical procedures. In 2016, he revealed that she had gone into full remission. Cade had tracked her treatments, doctor's appointments, surgeries, and recovery through her Instagram, and she and Dirnt became public advocates for cancer research organizations. The same year that one member of the extended Green Day family was diagnosed with cancer, so was another. Longtime band associate, touring member, and eventual full-time second guitarist Jason White found out that he too had cancer. When White underwent a tonsillectomy in 2014, a doctor discovered cancerous tissue. Thankfully, in 2015, White received the news that his tonsil cancer had gone into complete remission. To celebrate the 25th anniversary of 1969's Woodstock Music Festival, concert organizers staged a similar event in New York in August 1994. One of the biggest names on the bill was newly popular pop-punk band Green Day, who provided one of the most enduring images of Woodstock '94, when they engaged in a spirited mud fight with the crowd. By the end of the set, the members of Green Day were so caked in mud that it hindered their vision and mobility. Bassist Mike Dirnt collided with a member of the festival security detail stationed on the stage, which resulted in the sudden and violent expulsion of 2 teeth from his mouth.
"Okay, we're done. Goodbye."
That wasn't the only time that Dirnt hurt himself at a Green Day concert. Green Day played Los Angeles alternative rock station KROQ's Weenie Roast Festival in June 1998, as did pop band Third Eye Blind. As Green Day played, intoxicated Third Eye Blind bassist Orion Salazar rushed the stage to give Dirnt a giant hug. Dirnt didn't know who Salazar was and fought him off with kicks and punches. An onstage fight ensued, and a fan contributed with a tossed beer bottle, which struck Dirnt's head. The Green Day musician was sent to a local hospital, where he was treated for a skull fracture. If you or anyone you know is struggling with addiction issues, help is available. Visit the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration website or contact SAMHSA's National Helpline at 1-800-662-HELP. That's 1-800-662-4357.